Joining me now is senior fellow at the Independent Women's Forum, Patrice Lee. Patrice, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
All right, Patrice, I think this is one of those situations where you can't fight fire with fire. Government was the problem in the beginning. Government is why the EpiPen had the skyrocketing prices. Government's not going to be the answer too.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So let's look at the monopoly that Mylan has right now. It was actually created because big business and big government were working together, unfortunately, against us consumers. The FDA has a lot of responsibility. So does the Obama administration and Congress, who signed into law, bipartisan legislation to put EpiPens, in essence, in most public schools. So they created the monopoly situation for Mylan, and Mylan definitely has some responsibility here. But Hillary Clinton's idea of a response team to troll pharmaceutical companies is not the answer.
Right, and I want to dig into that a little bit because Hillary's proposition here, what she thinks would be the solution to this is to create, this is what she calls them, consumer response teams. I mean, even the name is a misnomer because it wouldn't be consumers, it would be government. But what would this response team amount to, Patrice? Would this just be price police?
Price police, more regulators, Washington bean counters, if you want to call them that. But that's what they're going to do. They're going to be trolling different pharmaceutical companies to look at their increase in prices and then fine them, if they think that the prices have increased too much. The first question that comes to my mind, and probably yours, is, well, how do they determine what is too much? In addition, there may be some good that these groups, this response team can do. Perhaps maybe moving the FDA to permit overseas alternative drugs. Hopefully that would be a good thing. But somehow I just don't see anything really changing more than just adding some more Washington bureaucrats here.
Right. It seems to me that the best response teams to keep the pharmaceutical companies accountable would be consumers themselves, actual consumers, not government masquerading as consumers. But just to drill in one step further, these consumer response teams, if they're going to troll the pharmaceutical companies and pick and choose which drugs they consider to be overpriced here, and like you said, that leaves the big question of who's deciding what's overpriced and what does overpriced mean. That to me just reads government-run economy. That's no longer the free market.
It's not. I mean, what we really need is competition, right? I mean, we need different companies coming to the table with their different ideas. When you have one company that comes up with a great drug or that's able to solve a problem, that's good. Maybe they get a patent or a trademark on that, and they're able to have some protection and charge the prices that they do. But that actually encourages other people to come into the market with a better product. And we as consumers, we benefit from better products and lower prices. That's what we really need in this case. We need the FDA to get moving off of its laurels and actually approve some of the different alternatives that are out there for generic drugs. And then let's allow the market to provide the best solutions for us.
Right, absolutely. And you brought up the point of competition. Liberals sit here and they blame this on corporate greed, and of course it is corporate greed. We see that. But at the same time, they're trying to blame the corporate greed. They're trying to couple that with the free market economy. And this is not the free market. We're already at a point that this is not the free market. The FDA is too involved. They're hyper involved in these deals with the pharmaceutical companies, and it's the FDA that's not approving generic alternatives for that. And the only reason for that could be collusion with the pharmaceutical companies themselves.
I mean, let's look at what happened with Mylan. They didn't just create this monopoly themselves. There were actually some maneuvers. They worked with the FDA and Congress and the Obama administration to be able to create an environment where they could flourish so much. They are very much at fault for the increase in prices. But let's take if we take Washington out, then that allows us to that stops in essence a company like Mylan from creating the environment that allows it to to own the market, so to speak.
Right, and they certainly do, because if there weren't collusion, if there weren't corruption involved here between the FDA and Mylan, this pharmaceutical company, then why did the FDA approve the generic alternative that Mylan produced so quickly when it's taken them either years to approve other ones, only to disapprove them, or just blanket saying no to generic alternatives altogether? That in and of itself is questionable. Patrice, we're almost out of time, but let me ask you this final question. The United States Senate right now is calling for the Federal Trade Commission to investigate whether Mylan violated antitrust laws by this price hike. In your opinion, did they?
This is just Washington theater at its best. A nice bipartisan, maybe bipartisan investigation to look into price hikes. Mylan absolutely did increase their prices at a ridiculous rate, but that's not to say that Washington's hands are completely free. Congress is very much a part and parcel in the reason why Mylan was able to create a monopoly. Go back to 2013 and look at the bipartisan legislation that some of these very same Congress members, helped to sign that put Mylan in such a place that it was, especially in public schools. So, this is just Washington charades at its best, and hopefully we'll see something other than just a FAW investigation, a report, and then we move on to the next big scandal or crisis.
Right. Well, what we need to see here is a reformation of this system. We need to see an audit of the FDA to identify exactly where the collusion and corruption is, because Mylan certainly has blood on their hands with their pricing of the EpiPen. There's no doubt about that. But if Washington, D.C. just took the gloves off their hands, we'd see the exact same stains there. Patrice, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always great to talk to you. All right, guys, you know the drill. Talk to me. Tweet Liz_Wheeler, and we'll meet you back here in just a minute.